was visiting family in Northern Ireland. I'm a student residing in Southampton and came over alone. I couldn't stay at my parents' house as they had downsized since I left, and not wanting to intrude on any other family members, I booked a stay at the Ballygally Hotel, mainly to visit the legendary ghost room, something I had always wanted to do, and I figured I could kill two birds with one stone, so to speak. I checked in and was shown to one of the older parts of the castle, near where the ghost room was, and was taken up the staircase to my room. It was a decent-sized room. Admittedly, I had stayed in bigger, but it was nice and something a bit different. I settled in and began unpacking my single suitcase, abandoning it halfway through due to laziness. I inspected the room. I didn't have high hopes of seeing the fabled friendly spirit of Isabella. After all, the room I was staying in wasn't hers. I had always believed in ghosts and had never really seen anything convincing. It was always just a hunch. I left the room immediately after showering and was picked up by my dad, who took me back to his home. The night was uneventful. We had a barbecue in the summer heat and I had a few too many pints to drink. I was dropped off at the hotel, this time by my mother since my dad was hammered. I entered my room, admittedly stumbling slightly from the drink, and could hear an artificial growl from the bathroom. I entered to see the bathroom as steamy as a sauna and the shower on full power and heat. I was sure I hadn't left it on before I went out, and a tingle moved through my body. I was about to ask if it was Lady Isabella who had done it, but paused and tried to be reasonable. I must have left it on. Right? I retired to my bed and fell asleep quickly. Perhaps I was more drunk than I thought, and I slept like a baby. Next morning, I went into the bathroom, brushed my teeth, and again hopped into the shower. The room steamed up similar to how it had done the previous night, and I got out and wrapped a towel around myself. I happened to glance in the mirror and could see that someone had wrote something on the mirror. It simply, and creepily, said, "Hello." I received a fresh set of goosebumps, and not because I was cold. Again, the tales of the Ballygally ghost flooded me. Was I now experiencing it? I again attempted to take a step back. Perhaps the last guest had done it and the cleaner hadn't noticed. I was disheartened I hadn't experienced something more concrete. But be careful what you wish for. I spent the day out with my old school friends. We went out and about in Bangor and returned early evening, settling down in a pub for some grub and a catch-up. It was about 10 PM when we had finished, and a few of my mates were going out clubbing in Belfast and extended me an invite. I declined, knowing I would be too hungover to spend the day with my mum if I did, and I returned to the hotel, which was a 15-minute walk away from the pub. I again got into my room, taking the staircase slowly so as not to stumble, and when I opened the door, I saw a full-on, full-bodied apparition of a ghostly-looking woman, pale and translucent. She was dressed in old medieval clothing and seemed sickeningly skinny. She looked right at me, smiled, and then as suddenly as I had seen her, she disappeared, vanishing like smoke. I stood in awe for at least 10 minutes, too scared and impressed to move and disrupt the scene. I barely slept that night, not because of fear, because of excitement. I said nothing of my experience to anyone at the time, kept it to myself. One more thing did happen whilst there. Again, I couldn't definitively say it was paranormal. It could have been a cleaner, but on my last day, I woke up and rushed to a local store to get a butty. Once I returned to the room, my bag had been neatly packed, zipped up, and was placed at the end of my bed. I know for a fact it had been on the floor and that most of my clothes had been in the wardrobe, so this was sensational. I did ask at reception as I left if anyone had been in my room. The receptionist offered to phone and check, but I was running late and, unfortunately, had to decline. If who I saw was Lady Isabella, then the stories are true. She is a genuinely polite spirit. I will always have a special place in my heart for her and Ballygally Hotel for showing me my first ever full-bodied apparition. Independence Day 2005. Me, my husband and 2 children, aged 9 and 13, are visiting my family for celebrations. My husband isn't too keen on my family, and to be honest, I wouldn't be either if they weren't my blood, so despite their offers, we opted to stay at a cheap hotel instead of at my parents' home, just so we could have some privacy. It was a dingy little place, a bit out of the way, and was unspectacular in so many ways. I don't even remember its name. We booked the biggest room in the hotel, which actually consisted of 4 sub-rooms, 2 bedrooms, and a lounge, and a bathroom. The layout goes as follows: a long straight corridor with 4 rooms, all to the left side only. Small bedroom, bathroom, master suite, lounge, in that order. Me and my husband were in the master suite, not because it was bigger, but because it had the double bed. The smaller bedroom had 2 singles. The Independence Day celebrations went by without issue, and we all had a wonderful time. We returned to our hotel late that night. We were all pretty shattered and passed in heaps on our temporary beds, and I definitely did anyway, fell asleep almost immediately. I don't know how long I was asleep for, but I found myself waking to loud cracks and bangs outside of the hotel. I remember thinking at first that it must be morning. Our hotel room had no windows, but was surprised to see it was 3:57 AM. I couldn't be bothered to get up, if I'm honest with you, and was tossing and turning angrily, covering my ears with my pillow to try and drown it out. It didn't work. Bang, bang, bang. It sounded like fireworks. I was pissed. I get it's Independence Day and people are still celebrating and whatnot, but come on, have some respect. This whole time my husband hadn't moved and I assumed he was sleeping through it. I caught a sight of his open eyes staring at the ceiling. "How long?" I asked sleepily. "Started about an hour ago," he replied. "Oh, fuck this." I stormed out of the bed and into the hallway, heading for the lounge. My 2 children must have been kept awake as well because they were out of their rooms shortly after we were out of ours, lazily asking what the noise was. We stormed into the lounge, forgetting to turn the lights on. I headed over to the curtains, sweeping them open in one swift motion. As immediately as I had done so, so too did the bangs cease. We all stood momentarily in suspended shock. Shared chills made us all uneasy. I looked at my husband, who stared dumbfounded back. I broke the silence, nervously stating, "They must have been blowing with the wind." My eldest spoke up. "That didn't sound like any wind, Ma." She was right, but I didn't want to admit it. The darkness of the room was encompassing and added to the overall feel of dread. Go to your room now," I barked, angrier than I intended. We all began heading back to our rooms in the darkness, the bomb-like bangs no more. I was at the head of the pack and began walking down the narrow corridor, every other person who should be in the room behind me. Why then did I see a shadowy, older-looking gentleman dressed in old Western attire and sporting a thick moustache, toting what I can only imagine as being a revolver, and looking into my kid's room? I shouted at the top of my voice, no doubt scaring my husband and the children. The light switch for the hallway was right next to me and I flicked it on immediately. There was nothing. No shadowy figure. Nothing that looked like it could be a shadowy figure. I told my husband to wait with the kids and I marched down the corridor, kicking in each door as I went until I finally reached the children's room, the door of which was still closed. I kicked it open in the same brazen manner and found that it was empty. I took no chances and phoned the hotel lobby and the police. The police searched the whole room and found nothing, whilst the hotel duty manager changed our rooms. The next day, we were leaving anyway. I know the rest of my family heard the mysterious bangs, but none of them saw the figure. Part of me thinks it could have been in my head. My home state and home city is known for its cowboy history, but the hotel wasn't in the centre of the city, nor was it a particularly historic building. But the figure, it seemed so real. I am surprised I can find no proof of this happening online. However, it may not have gained media attention due to the hotel not actually being a Disneyland one. I was at Disneyland Paris with my girlfriend, staying over for a few nights. We don't have the most lucrative jobs and had to settle for a cheaper hotel a bit away from the Disney park. It wasn't too big a deal. There was a shuttle bus every 10 or 15 minutes that took us right to the park, and near the park entrance is a train station that has trains that lead directly to Paris. The main downside was that apart from the hotel bar and restaurant, there was nothing nearby. No bars, restaurants, shops, nothing. Just fields surrounding us. Anyone who has been to Disneyland Paris will know exactly what I'm talking about. So we check into our hotel and we are on the top floor. The buildings aren't massive, I think only 5 or 6 stories high, but that's irrelevant. We arrived pretty late and showered, went down to the bar in the lobby, ordered a pizza from a weird little takeaway bit, then had a couple of pints. We returned to the room and went straight to sleep. My girlfriend super excited for Disney World tomorrow, as she had always wanted to go but had never actually been. Once we had settled and were quiet, we both noticed and became super irritated by a strong thud on the wall above our bed every couple of seconds. It was rhythmic and lasted about 5 minutes before it began to subside. It was still tapping, but getting lighter. We didn't want to be those guests, but decided we needed to inform the lobby, who said they would phone the neighbour. We heard the phone next door ring continuously. The thudding didn't stop and no one answered. The hotel lobby then phoned us back up and told us there was no answer and to phone back if the thuds continued for another 10 minutes. 10 minutes later, there was a gentle tap and we decided not to pursue it and managed to fall asleep. Next day, we were up bright and early for the park. We hopped on the shuttle, entered the park and enjoyed all the major attractions, my favourite being the Haunted Mansion. We had tea at a restaurant on the park, stayed for the finale show, then returned back to the hotel to see police and ambulances around our building. A hotel worker met us and chauffeured us to a new room in one of the other buildings, bringing all our luggage with them, and they apologised profusely. We later found out that the guy who had checked into the room next to us was found by a maid, hanging in the bathroom. The bathroom was a room directly next to ours. That tapping had been his limp and lifeless legs slapping off the wall. That was the thudding. That's what we had heard. Now, I mean no disrespect in sharing this, and my heart goes out to the victim and his family. It was just such a creepy experience. It was the last thing we had expected the thudding to be. I was on a business trip in Iraq about 7 years ago. I was looking at ways to improve living conditions with some locals and had checked into a run-down, bombed-out, literally, hotel. The trip and meetings consisted of boring technical details regarding laws and such, and the trip wasn't really for anything more. There wasn't really anything more to do in war-torn Iraq. I was a bit nervous to be visiting at the time when I did, given all the tension with the war, but I took comfort in the fact that my surroundings were fairly familiar. I had actually grown up and was born in Iraq, pretty close to where I was visiting too. One of my meetings had run over and I was out late. Initially, I headed to the street markets to get some traditional food. The markets were now a shadow of their former selves, and it was quite sad to see. I rounded the corner to my hotel and saw it was cordoned off. British and Iraqi army officers surrounded the small, seemingly unimportant building, eyes on it. I spoke with a local who told me a group of 3 men, all mid-30s, stormed the hotel and had taken a dozen people hostage, all of whom, apparently, were Iraqis. I watched in awe, thinking about how, if my meeting had finished on time, I could have been a hostage and it could have taken a very different turn from my perspective. My palms were sweaty as the hours rolled by. From what I gather, the militaries had decided to storm the building. It was weird seeing it in real life. Not from the TV, the deafening sounds of the flashbangs, the rattle of gunfire, and then an almost calm silence. The 3 hostage takers were killed, but in the process, they managed to execute 4 innocent people. People like me who had been visiting loved ones, or who had had their homes destroyed and took refuge in a hotel. Most days, I often think how lucky I was to not be in the hotel that day. There were a few local news reports of the incident, but they aren't in English. I guess, apparently, it wasn't important enough to break into international news. Hey guys, Brothers Jackson here. Hope you enjoyed those stories today. I've noticed that I've been doing a lot of paranormal stories, so I wanted to split it up a bit. I did 2 paranormal stories and then 2 like real horror stories, both of which were actually quite sad, the last 2 as well. But if you did like the video, don't forget to leave a thumbs up, comment any ideas you have for more videos in the comments below. Make sure you go and check out my Instagram, Tumblr, SoundCloud there. Links to all them are in the description as well. Don't forget to subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. Peace.